I am delighted and thrilled to bring you the message today, love your enemies. In the beginning, when I really thought about this topic, I need to tell you that God gives me topics, Spirit fills me with an idea, and a lot of times I don't really like the idea that I'm given. I'm like, really? Is this? I'm not really ready. And it's a beautiful thing because what it means is now I have to get ready. Once this topic came to me, I'm not going to stand here and talk about loving your enemies unless I'm willing to talk about loving our enemies. And so there was work to do this week. And so I'm going to teach a little bit from the Bible today because, as I've told many times, I grew up with the good Jesus, the one that loves the little children and lays down in the green pastures. And so I'm not afraid to teach from the Bible because I know that truth can be found any and everywhere. And so I want to share with you Romans 12 today. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And it goes on to say, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, it says, even the Bible says, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Do not overcome evil. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. I'm going to say that again. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Now, in religious science, we don't really believe in evil. We don't even really say that word around here much. And many of you have heard me tell the story that when my daughter was a baby, my mother was talking about the devil. And I said, oh, no, no, no. My child is not going to be raised with the idea of the devil. And my mother and I came to a clash over this idea. And as I softened a little bit in my faith and tried to practice more inclusiveness, I looked for a way to connect with my mother. See, sometimes we have a clash of faith and then we just go our separate ways. But if we're going to practice oneness, and I suggest that we do that today, I looked for a way to create a bridge to my mother, and I said, okay, Mama, in our church, we don't believe in evil, but what we believe in is confusion. And she said to me, oh, well, that's all right, because the devil is the author of confusion. I said, okay, Mama, okay, right? And even though we laughed at trying to find a connection, I need to tell you that if you're here today, you need to make a distinction between evil and confusion. And it's an important distinction that we're going to have to make today because evil has power. Confusion has no power. Do you understand the difference? If you're evil, then you are a force that opposes good. You have a power of force that I've got to fight. Where if you are confused, then all you really need is a little clarity, a little wisdom. I have faith in someone who is confused that they could be transformed into being not confused. Whereas if I feel you are evil, if I feel you are a devil, then the only thing that I can do is vanquish you, destroy you. Y'all might know what I'm talking about, don't you? But instead, what we believe is that we could be transformed by the renewing of our minds. This is what Romans is teaching us. Be transformed. And so today is a day, it's an opportunity if we're willing to renew our minds, to come back to that which we teach in the New Thought movement, to come back to those principles, to those ideas of oneness. And how can we do that? we're going to have to go back and study. Study the teachings of this philosophy. Study the good that comes from wisdom in every religious tradition. We're going to have to go within and meditate, which is, in my view, listening to God, to pray, which is, in my view, talking to God. This is our opportunity to renew our minds. We're going to need a renewed mind for the journey that's ahead of us. And when we renew our minds, we realize that God is real. We remember that God is actually the only power. And when we believe, truly, actually believe that God is the only power, well, then we have no enemies because nobody else has power. There's nothing to fight. There's nothing to annihilate. There's nothing to overcome. Now, I didn't say there's nothing to do. I just said there's nothing to fight. We're going to talk about the difference between those today. And so I actually have no enemies because my enemies have no power. Do you understand? I'm renewing my mind. I'm shifting my consciousness to remember where the power is. This is what happened in Portland. People came with their perception of power. And when the young people came, they tear gassed them. And guess what? The mamas showed up, and when the mamas came, they tear gassed the mamas, and guess what? The daddies showed up, and when the daddies came and they tear gassed the daddies, and they tear gassed the mamas, and they tear gassed the children, the world sat up and see, here's the trap that the leaders have put themselves into. They believe that leadership should come with popularity, so as soon as we as a people rise up and say, we're not going to have that. You're going to lose all the power that you think you have if you can't act in accordance with spiritual principle. So then people just kind of slunk off and tried to figure out the next thing that they could do with that warlike thinking. We weren't having it, you see. And we asserted our power, the power of peace, the power of consciousness, the power of the multitudes rose up and said, no, not on our watch. And those that just capitulate to the winds of change, those that just capitulate to whatever's popular, they say, our power is being threatened. We better try it a different way. It's not going to work. So I want to be clear. I say, Rev, well, what are you saying? You saying we just need to sit back? Absolutely not. The Bible says faith without works is dead. Mother Teresa said, love without justice is not love, right? So this thing that we want to do, this mountaintop thing where we say, oh, I am love and I am peace. If you are ignoring the call for justice, you're not love. You're not peace. The time is right now to speak up, to speak out, to show up, to stand between those who are being harmed and those who would do harm. It's time for mothers and fathers and two-spirit folks and anybody who has any kind of consciousness to do whatever they can to take a stand. Well, now, how do we do this, Rev, if we're not going to do it in the wrong way? Well, what's the right way? Well, we're not going to get into wrong and right. We're just going to learn. The Sankofa bird says we've got to turn and look at our past so we can know how to go in the future. So let's talk about the past of some of our movements. See, we fought in this country against racism in a civil war. And what did we do? We fought hatred and oppression with violence, right? And yes, we were able to overcome slavery. But what we found when folks got to the North was that there was a new Jim Crow right on up here, you see? And then we had a civil rights movement, and it was based on character and morality and the principles of nonviolence, but it was still a movement against something. And that morality triumphed, but yet what happened is we wanted the same kind of power other people had. And when we got that power, some of us replicated those same systems of oppression. We moved on up, we got a piece of the pie, and then we looked down at whoever we could who didn't make it to where we were. Come on. That's some of us. We got a little bit, and then we look down and say, well, how come you don't have a little bit? And don't come and try to take my little bit. Same thing. Do you understand? And then we've got the Black Lives Matter movement. And I want to say, no matter what you think about that movement, you need to know the consciousness with which it was created. The consciousness of the term, the idea, the seed of Black Lives Matter is a consciousness of love. It's a love revolution that says, oh no, we will not ignore the humanity, the value of Black people. We will not treat them like they are less than. We will hold them to the highest realization that everything that everybody else deserves, they deserve. They are human beings. We're not going back to 3/5 human. We're not going back to industrial complexes built for prisons and educational systems. We are going to say that we deserve justice, humanity, and equality. So this thing is a little different because it comes from a certain kind of consciousness. Look back at what the founders were trying to create, not what everybody who puts it on a t-shirt or a hashtag is doing. Go look at the movement for Black lives and see what it's really about. That's important. Don't wear the hashtag, don't put on the t-shirt, or don't criticize the movement unless you at least bother to find out what it is. But there's another thing that's happening that's not working so well. We call it the cancel culture. And here's what I want to say about that. Judgment calls out, but love calls in. It's still a call. We're still going to name what's wrong, but it's the consciousness, it's the renewing of our mind that allows us to decide what kind of call it's going to be. We're going to speak against injustice. We are, and we should, and we shall not stop. But is the idea that we're going to replace one kind of power with another kind of oppressive power? Or is the idea, as in the movements that I've seen for defunding the police, that we're going to empower and embody those healing forces in our communities? We're going to give more to education. We're going to give more to mental health resources, because so many of our people who have been killed and incarcerated and attacked just need help. So many of the women that are in prison have been survivors of sexual assault. We're not paying attention to the ways in which we have criminalized people who deserve love and help. So we're going to renew our minds. We're going to think differently about what is going to create transformation. So this is the new way for a new day. And Audre Lorde told us, she told us we cannot dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. It's not going to work. This is what she said. It might allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game, but it will never enable us to bring about genuine change, because all throughout the world, all throughout history, we have seen revolutions that then repeat the same systems of oppression as the people before them. If we are people of faith who believe in the oneness of all people, if we are people of faith who intend to renew our minds, if we are people of faith who believe that love is stronger than hate, then we need a new way for this new day. We cannot do it the way we used to do it. Now, we don't condemn anybody who is fighting for justice. We don't condemn property destruction and try to equate it with systems of historic oppression that have lived for 400 years. This is not what higher consciousness does. Higher consciousness says, what can I contribute that will actually solve the problem? What do I have to offer with all the faith that I have besides judgment? What can we offer? We who believe in oneness shall not rest. Not in this moment. I heard somebody say the other day, we have got to work on this racism thing so then we can all get back to working on saving the planet. And I'm here to tell you, as Angela Davis has said so many times, oppression is an interlocking system. Because don't act like we don't know that the same people who are killing black people are destroying the planet. Let's not act like white supremacy isn't the root of war and slavery and genocide. We're going to just say it now. We're just going to say it now. And so you cannot save the planet without saving the people on it. So when you tell me that you believe in environmental justice and the healing of the planet and global warming, I'm going to want to come to your house and ask, where is your racism compost bin? Because you didn't think that to save the planet, you had to sit somewhere and pray. You thought we had to do something. You got 3 bins in your house. This one is for trash. This one is for recycling. This one is for compost. Tell me what's in your house that shows me that you are willing to move, to act, to dismantle this disease called racism. Where is the power of your healing consciousness? How is it showing up in this moment where the entire interlocking systems of oppression are ready to crumble, ready to fall? What are you doing in this moment? I believe in the power of transformation. I remember I heard this story about a Muslim woman. I believe her name is Dia Khan. And this Muslim woman really, truly lived out the Bible more than most of us. Somebody told me once, you may be the only Bible someone ever reads. Because she met a man, Ken Parker. She was doing a documentary on white supremacy, and she met this man, Ken Parker, who was a grand wizard in the Ku Klux Klan in Florida. Do you understand when I'm talking about enemies? She was right there. She's a Muslim woman, and he's a white supremacist. She was right there, and he had heat stroke. And like the Bible says, she gave water to her enemy. And just that act, just that one act, set off a chain of events that led to 1 year later, Ken Parker was being baptized, renouncing the KKK and being baptized in a creek by a black minister at a black church. So don't tell me that love doesn't conquer all. She didn't have to pray over him or lay hands over him. She didn't have to conquer him. She didn't have to convince him that she was wrong. She just acted like a child of God. She just acted like God in the flesh. She didn't even think about it. She saw not an enemy, but a human being who was suffering. Oh, this is a hard teaching today. This is not just rah-rah, we gonna make a difference, we gonna conquer the enemy. We are. But we're going to have to transform and renew our consciousness, our minds. We're going to have to think differently. I want to talk to you a little bit about my journey and what I had to draw on this week in order to be able to even do this service, because I'm not any different than you. Please believe. You probably heard enough of me preaching, and if you're my Facebook friend, then you know for sure I'm not any different. You know, I'm trying to close the gap between the pews and the pulpit. That's my mission, to say I am suffering from the same dis-ease as everybody else. But I had a moment, what is now 20 years ago, when I first came to religious science, and Reverend Eloise was my teacher for our foundations class. And in that class, I came in angry. And I was curious about this religious science thing because I hadn't really come upon a black church that was accepting of all faiths. And, you know, I came in and I saw Ravi Ravi Shankar on the same day that they were singing Shout. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to check this out. And I took the foundations class with Reverend E, and she started talking about God is the only power, and we're all one, and there's no evil, and there's no devil, and all of these things. And no evil kind of, I wasn't sure about that one. And you know, I'm a raise my hand type of student. Excuse me, Reverend E. Well, what about slavery? What you going to say about that? There is no evil, because slavery was evil. She said, talk to me about something you know about. You ain't never been no slave. Talk to me about something you knew about that happened to you. I didn't like that answer, but I listened. And over the course of the class, I took on my own set of pain, the places where I had felt that people that I love, that my family, that my partners, I had felt that they had abused me, that they had abandoned me, that they had broken my heart. And I took on that pain and I said, what do I do with this? What do I do with the way that I might have demonized and called somebody evil, called somebody the devil? What do I do with this feeling and a change? Reverend E said you can't sit in front of her in a class or a pulpit every week and not be changed. And a change started to come into my life. And I started to see that no conditions had power over me. No personalities had power over me. That nothing that anyone had ever done or said could interfere with my divine inheritance. I realized that I was more than my childhood. I was more than my wounds. I was more than my broken heart. And I learned the capacity, the power of forgiveness, because forgiveness was not for them. Some of the people that I've had to forgive are long gone. Some of the people that I've had to forgive, I don't even know where they are. But I realized that some of them were not thinking about me at all, but I was thinking about them all the time. And if you are going to hold somebody in the prison of your consciousness, then guess what? You get to be a prison guard. You start looking around if somebody brings them up to make sure that that person hates them as much as you hate them. Oh, y'all don't know what I'm talking about? You hold them in this prison in your mind, and it's like, what do they say? It's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Doesn't work. So in Foundations, I learned the power of forgiveness, but I'm not going to tell you that it was easy. I'm going to tell you that it was extremely hard, and it's extremely hard right now today, which is why I had to do a lot of praying before I could come with this topic. But I remembered along the way all the times that I stepped up to the call of love and forgiveness. I remember being outside my ministerial panel and searching my heart and my consciousness for where I could not forgive. And I sat outside, some of you have heard me say, praying for Dick Cheney and R. Kelly, because those were the two archetypes in my head that I had no place of forgiveness for. Now, maybe we have a new archetype that we have no place for forgiveness for. His name is Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to tell you that I know a lot of people, and I have been one of them, that don't say that name. We for sure don't say it in the pulpit. We don't say it. But let me tell you what that does. It makes him a devil. It makes him a power. I can say his name today because I have transformed and renewed my mind, and I am able to call him for what he is. He's terrified. He is an old way that is dying, that is fighting for its life. He is the way of war that is failing. He is a world of greed that is bursting at the seams. He is the illusion of a greater country or a greater race that's being exposed by the truth of oneness. See, this coronavirus came to say that none of this is a respecter of persons, and whatever happens to me is going to happen to you. So you better put on your mask or stay in your house, because it's all coming for everyone, because we're only one. So we can all heal each other or we can all kill each other, but we're going to have to decide. So one man in the White House, not Barack Obama, not Donald Trump, doesn't change everything. We change everything. And I believe that there is no enemy, that everyone, including Donald Trump, is a child of God. And let me tell you why that's good news, because I don't have to fight him. I don't have to annihilate him. I have to speak to that thing which has more power than he will ever have. And I have to know that that thing has dominion over him like it has dominion over me. I get to surrender to that thing and give him to that thing and pray into that thing and know that that thing has no bounds. It has no limitations. It's not afraid of him. It's not intimidated by him. It's not governed by him. And because I'm one with that thing, I'm not intimidated. I'm not afraid. I'm not governed. I don't care what title he has. I don't care what army he sends. I'm not governed by him. Because I trust God. Because I know God. Because I am one with God, I have no enemies. I have no enemies. There's no force that opposes this consciousness. So when I take a stand, and I still take a stand against confusion, I do so with the armor of love. Because right now, I'm prepared. I'm prepared to shout down the walls of Jericho. But I know that it's God that will make those walls crumble. I am not going to bury my head in the sand. See, some of y'all think that if you conscious, if you prayerful, if you're good and benign in judgment, then you have to bury your head in the sand and pretend like that an earthquake of violence is not growing in this country. It is. It is. And I will prepare me and mine with a survival kit. You know, that emergency toolkit that we have for earthquakes, it's not because we're going to sit around every single day and go, is the earthquake coming? Is the earthquake coming? We're not going to focus our consciousness on an earthquake coming, but we're going to be prepared. See, I'm not going to ignore the warnings of the hurricane of hate that we can see in our street every day when they tried to set fire to Pastor McBride's church. I'm not going to ignore the warnings of the hurricane of hate. Don't ignore the warnings. Move yourself to higher ground. I personally am going to move my body to higher ground. I'm going to separate myself from the places that I know are hurricane prone. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're going to move ourselves to the higher ground, but not just our bodies are going to be prepared, because the greatest tool we have is our consciousness. So today, I want to practice a special kind of forgiveness. And I want to invite you to join me. Today, I forgive me. Today, I forgive me for ever thinking that I should be afraid, intimidated to say the words Donald Trump. Today, I want to forgive me for thinking that evil had any power, that it was real. I want to forgive me for thinking that the armies might overcome the power of peace. I want to forgive me for thinking that darkness could drive out darkness. I want to forgive me for forgetting, even for 1 second, that love is always greater than hatred. I forgive me. I hope you'll join me.